There we
He's a
are.
fat controller.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
He's a control freak. You know, he's just that kind of guy, you know.
Okay, if we will crack on with one or two more questions for
Yeah.
Kevin.
Could I ask one?
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Dave,
it's something we've spoke about on here quite often. Central contracts and the fact that we don't get chance to see the England players playing for the county very often.
No.
What's the? I don't really understand the full meaning of it. We've spoke many times that said Joe Root's not been able to play for Yorkshire, but Chris Broad has played for Notts.
Stuart.
So
Stuart.
you know, Stuart Broad, yes.
Not Chris Broad.
Chris Broad played as
Well,
well.
he could. I mean, Chris Broad was a good player.
there's nothing like a Broad.
Oh, dear.
Well,
Picking
I'm
on
not sure I've fully got the answer for you.
no, opinion then. Opinion.
Opinion. Well, look, I mean, I think the game's evolved so much now that there's that much cricket being played, isn't there, around the world, 12 months a year. It's kind of, the way it's changed over the last few years is quite incredible, really. I mean, back in the day when I was a lad, of course, cricket was only played in England in between April and September. It wasn't played anywhere else. So counties would get your two overseas players coming over and playing, and the best players in the world all played county cricket generally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you know, even your test players, I can remember one morning playing at Chesterfield actually, and it was just against Derbyshire. And it was the back end of a test match where Devon Malcolm had been playing for England over, I think it was South Africa from what I can remember. And I can remember watching it on telly, and Devon bowled really quickly, and he was quite a handful. And we were playing, and the test match was like, I think it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They used to have the break day on a Sunday, didn't they?
Yeah.
And Monday, Tuesday. And we were playing Derbyshire on the Wednesday morning. I can remember thinking, if Devon plays on Wednesday morning, he's going to be a bit of a handful. And he did play, but he just come off the back of bowling loads of overs in the test match. And he got to Chesterfield and he looked a bit jaded, to be honest. He was really giving it 100%, but probably didn't quite have the firepower that morning that he had during the test match. But that's pretty understandable when you just had a 5-day test against South Africa, I think it was. But, you know, that it's evolved. I mean, if you look at all the tournaments around the world now, and it's not just red ball cricket, it's all the white ball tournaments, there's more and more of these evolving. And I suppose is it a danger that lots of players may just choose now to play white ball cricket and make a living from that because they can go into the various franchises around the world and you won't get
Alex Hales, Will Smeed.
Yeah,
they're already doing it, aren't they?
Yeah. And I suppose that, you know, that then there's the compromise of if you played how much cricket you have played is then how much of a break do you need? You know, to just refresh yourself. So, I mean, bear in mind, these lads, I mean, I'm not fully au fait with how central contracts work now, but obviously these guys are employed by England. So they tend to, you know, the counties have to take a little bit of a back seat, really, and they're told when their players can come back and be available.
Yeah, they only let them play on test grounds as well, don't they?
Well, do they?
Well, for the counties.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I didn't know
I
that.
didn't realise
That
that.
might answer the question why Joe Root didn't play in that final game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Aye. Aye.
Well, I
Right.
can't give the answer.
Okay, great. Let's get back to Kevin. You had a 14-year first-class playing career, and you were capped by Yorkshire in 1982. But can you tell us about your first century for Yorkshire? in your 70th innings. What a relief.
You've been doing research.
Oh, aye.
Oh, Chris has.
I believe it was at Lords.
It was
It was.
It was 1980.
7th of June, Kevin.
Was it?
7th of June, Kevin. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd had 2 or 3 90s, so it had been a bit frustrating leading up to that. In fact, Dickie Bird gave me out LBW in the 90s at Bradford against Middlesex. I think it might have been earlier that season or the season before. I was spewing with Dickie because I said, you know, couldn't you just let me get 100? But no, it was against a very good, I mean, a strong Middlesex attack. I think it would have been Wayne Daniel. I think Vincent van der Bijl played. Don't think Mike Selby played in that one, but Bill Merry, John Embier and Phil Edmonds. And what I do recall of it is I got to 94 and I got a little bit nervous. Thinking, oh,
Can't think why.
and we're at Lords. And I'd faced quite a lot of balls without scoring. And Phil Edmonds bowled one at me and I pushed it out into the offside towards Graham Barlow, who you remember was a fantastic
Brilliant
fielder.
fielder.
Brilliant fielder, Graham Barlow. And I ran to him, which was really a mistake. And he picked it up and wanged it at the bowler's end. Phil Edmonds didn't quite get back to the stumps. So, but if it had hit the stumps, I would have been run out by 3 or 4 yards. And it kind of, Mike Braley was stood at mid-on. So it went to Mike Braley, he got the old long barrier out, and it just took off and went over his shoulder for 5.
Really?
Yeah. So I went from 94 to 99.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Still
and
need
it
to
was
do it.
cover. And I was batting with David Bairstow, and David could see I was in a bit of a state. So he said to me, he said, I was facing John Embury, and he said to me, if you hit it, run. So I played forward, ran out on the offside towards Barlow again, and Bluey had taken off. He'd set off sprinting, and he dived, bless him. He dived full length in the crease at the wicket keeper's end just to get in. He was absolutely filthy. Laid with his head in the dirt. Just got in, and as he was doing that, I was waving to the balconies. The lads ignored it completely. And waving to the lads on the balcony, and Bluey was shouting at me, "What about me? What about me, you little git?" So I went up and gave him a hug. So it was quite nice to.
Fantastic.
It's always a nice, you know, when you look back and recall what's happened in your career, to think you got your first 100 at Lords is quite nice, really. Very nice.
Fantastic.
So,
I never knew that about Braley and the overthrow. I never knew that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Kevin, you also played in South Africa between 81 and 84. What kind of experience was that?
Incredible experience, because I'd had 3 winters in Perth in Western Australia before that. But of course, I went to South Africa and it was still under the apartheid regime. And I was employed by De Beers, the diamond company. And I was in Kimberley, where, you know, Harry Oppenheimer House was situated. And I lived on my own. I was a 21-year-old. I had this house, like 3 or 4 bedrooms on my own. It was next to the country club at De Beers. So everything was just like first class facilities. But it was quite a very interesting experience, with obviously apartheid and everything like that. And, you know, all the things that went on then. I mean, but it was quite in some ways, quite a lonely experience for a while, because I spent a lot of time on my own. But the guys at the cricket club knew that. And so that I often, you know, they'd often invite me around for food and spend an evening with people and that sort of thing. But no, it was some of the memories, you know. I can remember chatting to lads like Paul McLaren, Ryan McLaren, who played for Lancashire and South Africa. I was very good friends with his father, Paul, and we were really quite close. And what I didn't realise is that like he was one of the he was a parabat, you know, like in South Africa. Then everybody had to do national service.
Yeah, yeah.
But Paul was one of the 12. He was like our SAS, if you like. He was a parabat, and he was, you know, he was one of those guys. So it was quite. I remember once at the Wanderers in Johannesburg, the dressing room attendant was a Zulu warrior, and I tried to get his earring off him, but he won't let me have it. But you know, I had a servant. I had a guy who came around once a week, a young lad in his mid-20s with a similar age. He'd be a bit older than me, and I used to just, you know, make him a cup of coffee and sit down, and we'd talk about all sorts of things. But it was quite an experience for sure.
Yeah.
Right, on to a different kind of experience.
Hey, Keith, are you wearing earrings?
It just looks like it's the clock.
Oh,
It's the clock, yeah.
If I go like that, it makes me look
Saint
saintly.
Keith. Yeah.
Very, very festive, Keith.
St. Keith.
Yeah. So, Kevin, you featured in 33 century batting partnerships in first class cricket,
Did I?
including 9 with Sir Geoffrey.
Jeffrey.
What was that experience like?
Just in the midst of it.
Well, I mean, you know, do you know that Sir Geoffrey sent me home on my first day as a professional cricketer?
No.
I know, yes. Yeah. Just got it on the phone.
Yeah, so I'm 16 years old. I walked through into the dressing rooms at Headingley, and the first guy I walked into was the 1st of April when pre-season practice started. The first guy I walked into was Geoffrey Boycott, and he looked at me and he said, "Oh," he said, "What's your name?" I said, "Well, it's Kevin Sharp." He says, "All right, okay." He says, "Where do you live?" I says, "Well, I lived only 2 or 3 miles from Headingley at Meanwood." And he said, "Oh," he says, "Okay." He says, "Well, I'll tell you what," he says, "just go put your bag in that corner." He says, how did you get here today?" I says, "I've come on the bus." He says, "Right." He says, "Go back on the bus, go home and put some decent clothes on." So I've got like a pair of jeans and a t-shirt on.
Yeah.
And he said to me, "Well, you don't come here dressed like that." I said, "Oh, okay." So I leaves my bag in the corner and goes home on the bus. My mum's in the kitchen. She says, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I said, "I've been sent home to get changed." So I put a pair of decent trousers on and shoes, open neck shirt and a jacket, got back on the bus and went back to Edinburgh. I missed all the morning session. I went back in the dressing room and Jeff was in there. He said, "That's better." He said, "Jeff Boycott, pleased to meet you."
Hold on. Yeah.
So that was my first experience of Jeff. And, you know, I mean, look, I mean, he was obviously been one of the greatest players. He great powers of concentration, application, dedication, all those things. I mean, he practiced more than anybody else. He'd turn up at Headingley on practice days. He'd be in the nets. He'd leave. He'd be still in the net. You know, he worked harder than anybody else. Single-minded, I think, at times. I mean, I personally got on very well with him. You know, we were fine. I remember when I first got married, I lived in Wakefield, not far from where he lived in Woolley, and I used to travel with him a lot. And he let me drive his power steering BMW car. Also, we spent quite a bit of time in the vehicle together and that. But you know, he was very focused. If he didn't make 100, he'd failed.
Yeah. Did he run you out very often?
Not very often. I remember he ran me out at he ran me out at Cheltenham once. I don't think on purpose.
No.
Sure he did.
No, he was the one that got run out on purpose.
I was only run out by 5 yards.
Bit like Randall then.
Sorry.
Bit like Randall in the test.
Oh,
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
that. Yeah, I can remember that. But no, I mean, look, he was the ultimate professional. Everything he did was geared to making runs, and you can't argue with, the way he went about his task.
So when you were batting together, did he help you from the other end of the pitch or not?
It depends. There were times when they made some helpful comments, but I can remember one particular. He used to say to me that left-handers get all the bad balls. You don't get any bad balls, then. He said, no, it's left-handers that get all the bad balls.
He put that in your benefit brochure.
He did.
He said it was easier to be left-handed. You had a natural advantage.
He did. Anyway, so we're playing this game against Surrey, championship match at Headingley, and it was a really slow wicket, and Surrey had bowled really well in the morning. It was a bit like a war of attrition, and we were only something ridiculous like 60 for 1 at lunch, something like that. He was about 30 not out. I were about 20 not out, something like that. And it was just so hard and difficult, and Surrey had bowled really well. So anyway, I was facing the first ball after lunch, and a guy called Graham Monkhouse was bowling, blonde-haired seamer, and he bowled me the first half volley of the game, wide outside off stump, and I whacked it for 4 through extra cover. And I hit the ball, I ran down the wicket to hear the dulcet tones of Jeff saying, "Sodding left-handers." He didn't actually say sodding, but there you go.
We are teasing.
So anyway, I thought, oh, thanks, Jeff. Cheers. Anyway,
Cheers.
next ball, I got a leg stump half volley, and I clipped it through mid wicket for 4, so I got 2 half volleys. And so I ran down the wicket again. Sodding left-handers, you get all the bad balls, he said. So anyway, the third ball, the next ball, he bowled me a full, very full half volley that I punched back for another 4. So I'm jogging down the wicket, and Jeff turned his back on me. Turned away. So I ran down the full length of the pitch, put my arms around him. I said, Jeff, he's bowled me another one. He's bowled me another one. Get away from me. Get away from me. So, it was quite funny, really. I mean, when you recall things like that, I mean, but Jeff is just speaks from the hip, doesn't he? He doesn't hold back. He just says what he thinks, and some people, it can be quite brutal, can't it? Some people, might get a bit upset by some of the things he might say, but just his life, he's obviously got a fantastic cricket brain. He knows exactly what he's talking about when it comes to cricket. That is for sure.
Right.
Breaking news: Eddie Jones has been sacked.
Oh, I see.
What a surprise.
They've already got somebody lined up.
Kevin,
Gotta be Borthwick.
you're a member of the John Player League Champions when you won it with the last ball in the Lord's final. What?
Benson and Edges. Benson and Edges, Keith. Benson and Edges.
Benson and Edges.
Benson and Edges. John
Yeah.
Player.
Do you mind? Do you
No.
mind?
Benson and Edges.
Yeah.
And you won it off the last ball. What was that like?
Oh, amazing. First Lord's final ever. I mean, what I can recall of it is when we fielded first, Northants batted. I can remember thinking it was quite, there's 25, 26,000 in the ground at Lord's. It was full. But it felt quite quiet. I'd expected it to be a bit noisier at that point. And I think from what I'm remembering, Northants made about 244 for 7, something like that. And we went into bat, and we were cruising. Martin Moxon and Ashley Metcalf got off to a great start, and we were 98 for none. And then suddenly, Ashley and Martin got out together, followed by Richard Blakey. So suddenly we went from 98 for none to 101 for 3. And Jim Love and I were then at the crease, both not out. And, you know, we had to rebuild the innings from there. So we did a job. We were both in our mid-20s. We were doing okay. We were getting back into the game. And then the spinners had been bowling. Nick Cook, his left-arm spin, who's just retired from umpiring. And of the off-spinner, Richard Williams had been bowling. And Nick had just finished his spell. It was Richard's last over, and Jim and I had a chat. And Jim said, look, it doesn't matter if we don't score any off this over. He says the seamers will come back on after straight away, and it should be easier to score off the seamers than the spinners. So I faced the first 4 balls or so, and I nailed a few, one couple to extra cover, one to mid-wicket, whatever, didn't get a run. And then I made a mistake. I tried to cut a ball that was too full, and I got bowled. And it wasn't a great shot. It was a poor shot. And I knew it. And I was at the far end, so I had to walk past Jim on my way back. He just turned his back on me as if to say that was a crap shot. So I didn't get much solace from him. And then, so I walked back and I got in the dressing room and I was sat in the corner. I was really quite upset because I thought I'd lost us the game. I just thought I've lost us the game here doing that. And I sat in the corner. I didn't even take my pads off. I just sat in the corner watching through a little tiny window at the side. And I just kept thinking, oh, please don't let me lose this again. And Jim batted ever so well. And we got to the last over. And I think we got David Bairstow got a few. Phil Carrick had got a few. And Arnie Sidebottom had come in. And I think we needed something like, was it 2 to win off the last 2 balls or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
And then so Arnie hit one to mid-on. No, we needed, I think 2. I think we needed something like that. I can't remember. 2
It
to
was
win.
about
What I do remember is that Arnie hit it to mid-on, straight to Rob Bailey, who picked it up, and he was only about 3 or 4 yards from the stumps, and he underarmed it, and Arnie would have been run out. And he just missed the stumps from 3 or 4 yards. And so that got us to a situation where we were level off the last ball. So the scores, we were 244 for 6, where Northants had been 244 for 7. So Jim Love was now 75 not out. He batted beautifully to win us the game. And Winston Davis was bowling the last ball. And Jim only had to do was not get out. He didn't need to score a run. The scores were level, but we would have won on fewer wickets lost because, you know, we were only 6 down.
That's right.
And so Winston Davis actually bowled a very good Yorker on the last ball to Jim, and he kept it out. He dug it out, and we'd actually won it. And I was still sat with my pads on in the corner, willing us over the line. And of course we'd won, and I was drunk within half an hour on champagne. And here's the thing about this, is that we had an hour in the dressing room, and family and friends came in, we had a drink, and then we went into the tavern and had a drink to celebrate. But of course, what we'd forgotten about is that we were playing at Scarborough the next day against Middlesex in a league.
Yeah.
Good schedule. Good schedule.
Oh, it was amazing because we obviously had a bit of a part, and we got on the bus at God knows what time. And would you believe that Mike Gatting was commentating on that game, and he was playing against us the next day, so he came on the bus with us to Scarborough. And we finished up having a bit of a party on the bus, and we stayed at Selby Fork on the A1 at a motel on the A1 that night, and we stayed there, and we got up next morning. Everybody was a bit quiet, a little bit worse for wear. And of course, we played Middlesex at 2 o'clock, And so we gets on the bus and we gets up there, and it was amazing because we got up there about midday, and already there was about 1,000 people queuing down North Marine Road. And it was just, we got to 2 o'clock the start of the game, and Ashley Metcalf and I walked out to bat, and the ground was full. There were people hanging out of the B&Bs on Trafalgar Square and on the roofs and everything. It was such a and we got a standing ovation. And I can remember just saying to Ashley, I just said, just stop a minute and have a look at this, because it might never happen again. just take this in, because this is a bit special, and it was. And we got out to bat, and we were both feeling a bit worse for wear. And would you believe we were 40 for none after 6 overs? I'd nicked 3 throat slips for 4, and Ashley got inside edges for 4. I got out, Ashley got a few, we won the game.
Oh.
We actually Phil Carrick was captain, and I can remember his team talk as we sat there just before we went out, all a bit like feeling a bit ropey. And his team talk was, "You can do what you want today." And we did, and we won. So there you go. So no, great memories. I mean, that was 1987.
Yeah. Right, Kevin, we've just under 10 minutes to go. Can I ask you about your coaching career now, please? Obviously, you started off at Yorkshire, but then you went to Worcestershire and became head coach. Sorry, in between, you became an umpire. Is that correct?
No, never been an umpire. You're talking about George Shaw?
Right. Wikipedia must have got that wrong.
Never believe what you say on Wikipedia. It's never believe it.
Right, going back to your career as a coach at Worcester.
Yeah.
Finals day in 2018.
Yes. Fantastic. What a day. So I've become head coach that year, and of course, never won a trophy as a coach. Worcester had never ever been to finals day before. And so we played Gloucester in the quarterfinals at New Road, and there was a bit of tension around, a bit of nerves around, because the club had been to 3 or 4 quarterfinals before, but never made it to finals day. I think there was just, at that point, there was us and Derbyshire who'd never been to finals day. There was only 2 counties who'd never been there. And so we played Gloucester in this quarterfinal, and it was a funny atmosphere. We never talked about it, but you could sense the lads were a little bit on edge because they wanted to win so much and get through to a final. And even the crowd, I mean, 6,000 in the ground at New Road, it was full, but they were quiet as well. It was almost like everybody was a bit on edge, as if they wanted, please, please, please let us get to a final. And Gloucester batted first, and they didn't make it wasn't a big score, but it was quite a slow wicket, and I think they got about 130 odd, something like that. And it was touch and go all the way. And, it could have gone either way when we were batting. And then Callum Ferguson, the Australian, who was our overseas player, he played a magnificent innings and got us over the line. So we got to final. And everybody was really relieved. It was, it was just something fantastic to look forward to. And then we got towards finals day. And the day before finals day, bearing in mind that year, Moeen Ali was captain of the team, but he didn't play in every game. Played in quite a few games, but Moeen was such a inspirational leader. He is an inspirational leader. It's so calm and so smart in his thinking and his tactics. And so we got to day before finals day at Edgbaston, and we decided that we'd practice at New Road, and then we'd drive up to Birmingham later in the afternoon, and we stayed overnight because we were playing the first game in the morning against Lancashire. So we got to New Road practicing on the Friday, and there's 15 players, there's 5 coaches, sports staff and everything. We're all in a group. And Moeen, for me, said something really quite special. We're expecting him to just address a few words. And we're all in a circle looking at Mo, and he didn't say anything. He just looked at everyone. Man for man, looked and nodded at everyone in the group, and he just said, I want everybody to expect to play 2 games tomorrow. And that's it. We just got on with practice. And as it left me stood there, and I'm thinking, he gave me goosebumps, actually. And I still get goosebumps now, because I think for me, what he did was he told everybody we were going to win it without actually saying it. He said, well, I want everybody to expect to play 2 games tomorrow. And I stood there and I thought, God, that was brilliant. And we got on the ground this morning. You know, it's 9 o'clock. The ground's filling up. Holly stand's filling up. They're singing already. We're in the away dressing room, so right next to the Holly stand. The atmosphere was brilliant. The lads were warming up. I was just observing what was going on, and I just, you know, I just kind of felt as though we were going to win it. I just thought all the ducks that had been building up to it, setting them in a row, I just thought we're going to win this today. And then the game started, and Moeen got dropped early at cover, early in the case, and I thought to myself, you don't want to be dropping Moeen Ali. And, you know, and we went on and beat Lancashire in that game. Ben Cox played ever so well. He took us over the line at the end with the bat. And then we played Sussex in the final, and it was nip and tuck. And with 5 overs to go, it could have gone either way. And Ben Cox did the job again. He played a magnificent innings. He scored quite a few runs off Jofra Archer and Chris Jordan. And we got over the line with an over to spare or something like that. And it was rather special. It was quite a nice thing to celebrate and be on the ground and with your supporters and your lads and that sort of thing. So never forgotten. Never forgotten a day like that. You just take it with you for the rest of your life, really.
Yeah. Any future players we should be looking out for?
Yeah, Jack Haynes. Jack Haynes has just been to Gavin's lad. You know, Gavin, who used to play for Worcester. Jack is Gavin's lad, and he's just been with the England Lions in Abu Dhabi on a training camp for 2 weeks. He's just returned back. They're going to announce the Lions squad for January. I believe they're going to Sri Lanka for 3 or 4 weeks. We hope he'll be in that. We don't know yet, but hopefully he will. And he bats number 4 for Worcester in Championship cricket now. He plays a part in the one-day game. He had a great experience last year with, he had 200 or 300 partnerships with Azhar Ali, who's our overseas player, and brilliant man to have around. Obviously, he's just played against England in this test match. He's nearing his 100th test match, but he's just a wonderful overseas player to have in your dressing room, so supportive and helpful to the group. And Jack spent hours at the crease with him last year, which was just great benefit for him, to come off and have those learnings and those experience. So, but there's other lads around. I mean, we've got always had some promising seamers. Josh Tong, who was on the fringe of Lions a couple of years ago, has been really suffered with a bad shoulder injury for 2 years, but he's on his way back now, and fingers crossed for him. But, but there's other lads around. We've got, Pennington's a very promising fast bowler, Baker, a young left arm spinner, 1 or 2 younger batsmen coming through, have just been signed on. So, there's lots of promise.
Yeah, thank you ever so much for coming on today, Kevin. If you feel the need, please come on again. And one thing I've not asked you, we're all football nuts. Which football team do you support?
Be careful what you say, Kevin.
Well, I'm from Leeds. What do you expect?
Oh, bloody hell. Oh, Christ.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
What a shame.
All right.
All the best in the
Thank you
future,
very
Kev. All the best in the future, mate.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Yes, thank you ever so much, Kevin.
Thank you.
Take
Yeah,
care.
thank you.
Thanks.
All the
Been a
best.
pleasure. Thank you.
Good luck.
Bye.